In today's episode, we have a special one with Nick Pellegrino. Nick is the founder of Mangia Nashville, which is a wildly popular pop-up restaurant turned permanent dining experience known for its community, energy, and authentic Italian food. Kennedy and I recently had our first experience there, and afterwards I was like, I have to interview the owner on the podcast. During this episode, we're going to talk about how Nick built a restaurant brand around relationships, celebration, and a family tradition that he used to always do growing up. And we talk about how he navigated the challenges of entrepreneurship, burnout, and building something that brings people together. For now, it's time to get closer to your best you. Let's dive in. All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Best You podcast. Today, I am super excited and very thankful to be joined by the one and only Nick Pellegrino. I had the amazing experience and fortunate opportunity to go to Mangia, I think it was 2 weeks ago now, 2 Fridays ago now, to experience the very special, very unique experience at Nick's Italian restaurant that's been going on for 14 years now. And so Kennedy and I we went with 2 other couples, and we had an absolute blast. And the experience was something that you basically never see in the restaurant industry. And so we're going to get a lot into that. But to begin with, we're going to go back a little bit into Nick's story, into the idea of this whole concept. Because you were in the music business, traveling for 12 years, basically. And to my understanding, you got to this point where like, I don't really want to do this anymore. And then you had this idea, maybe like around Christmas or something, where it was like, we have so much fun sitting around as a family, having this Italian meal. It reminded you of when you grew up and everything like that. And you're like, how fun would it be to be able to create this experiment in a restaurant experience in a restaurant atmosphere and share it with so many other people? And then you're like, I want to do this thing. And then it basically kind of opened up in a cool cafe down in Franklin. But give us like I think going from idea to execution is so fascinating. And so tell us a little bit of how you went from idea to execution.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, I was in the music business for most of my adult life. I mean, playing shows and recording and touring since I was 15 years old in New York City and then here. And I guess this all kind of transpired around the time when my son was 2 or 3 years old. And I was getting on a tour bus on a Thursday night and not seeing him until the following Tuesday, or sometimes I'd be gone for 2 weeks at a time if it was, cross country. The great thing about Nashville is most things are only a couple hours away. But there are, some dates that will take you further out. And I would look at him each time and I'm like, I don't want to miss this, because those are the moments. The most profound thing I've ever heard is the only thing you cannot get back is time. You can get back money, you can get back people, you can back relationships, whatever it is, but time will never come back to you. So my thought process was like, I am not going to miss my son growing up, so I have to figure something else out. So I had a background in food as well. In New York, I had a catering business with a buddy of mine. I traded him guitar lessons for cooking lessons, and we wound up opening a little catering business together. So anyway, fast forward to all this. Dinners at our house growing up were events. Christmas Eve at my grandmother's house, Thanksgiving at my other grandmother that lived upstairs. Everybody was there around the table. And it was really those moments that really inspired me to do something like what we do at Mangia. And so I wanted to bring those kind of traditions down with us when we moved to Tennessee. And we had some friends that we shared holidays with every year. They didn't have a lot of family here. We had no family here. So we'd go to their house for Thanksgiving. They'd come to our house for Christmas Eve for the Feast of the Seven Fishes. And we do these things. And we were sitting there on New Year's Eve one year in 2011. And I looked around at everybody and I'm like, how great is this? Because we always say, who eats better than us? And we're like, nobody. And I looked around at everybody and I was like, how great would this be if it were a restaurant where people actually paid to do this? And it was, you didn't think about what you had to order. Or, you just come in and sit down and enjoy a beautiful meal with friends and family, get to know people. And that was where the idea came from. And now I had a friend who owned a Meat and Three, the cool cafe, and I went to him and I said, man, I got this idea for this dinner party type thing. And it would be like a price fixed menu. There's no ordering, just like, come in and here's what we're serving tonight. Come and hang out with us. And he was like, I'm closed on Saturday. Let's try it. So literally a month later, we decided to try this thing, and I put the whole menu together. And the first thing I did, because my mind is always that of an entertainer, I thought of the music, how I was going to program the music from the minute you walked in the door to the minute you left, and how it all kind of made sense with the dinner and what things were happening in the dinner. And that first night that we did it, I just put the word out to all of my friends in the music business, and I had managers, producers. Sheryl Crow was there the first night. People like that were in the room, and there was about maybe 30 people. And so we did this thing, and I looked around, and I was like, this is really cool. And everybody was like, you have to do this. You have to do this. This is incredible. So I went to my buddy who owned the Meat and Three, and I said, what do you think about doing this, once a week? Every Saturday night, you're closed. Now, from a business standpoint for him, it was like, okay, yeah, let's try it. It's, room sitting empty. Let's generate some revenue from doing it. So we literally, 2 weeks later, we got ourselves a Facebook page and Instagram and just started putting it out there on social media that we were going to do this thing. And the first night, 50 people. Next week, 50 people. All of a sudden, it's like selling out. And then one of the magazines, the Nashville Scene at the time, and it's still around now, is a great magazine in Nashville. And they came and they did a story about it. And from that point on, we were sold out every Saturday night for the next 3 months, which is like crazy to me. And it just exploded like that. And so what eventually happened, we said, okay, well, let's do Fridays too, because he's looking at it as like, wow, I could make way more money on a Friday night doing this than I can, selling meatloaf and mashed potatoes. And so we wound up doing Fridays and Saturdays, and it just kept growing and growing. Now, as that was happening, the feast evolved into more than just sitting down and eating. Mm-hmm. I had this vision that there's a great scene in The Deer Hunter when they all come back from Vietnam, and they're all in this bar, and they're playing pool and they're drinking together, and all of a sudden Frankie Valli, I Love You Baby comes on, and they just erupt into song and they sing the whole thing. The first night that we did it, I came out from behind the counter and I got the whole place clapping and singing that song with me, and it was like, this is like pure joy. And as it evolved, there were more songs that we did that with. I was doing drum solos on the table with spoons, and people were clapping and just losing it. Yeah. And then all of a sudden I see people that just start getting up and dancing. I'm like, wow, this is really cool too. Let's incorporate this dance thing into it. I was fortunate at the time, one of the girls that was working for us was a dance instructor. I paid for the entire staff to go there.
Oh my gosh.
We're going to take dance lessons.
That's awesome.
Because we're going to do this. Let's do it like we actually know what we're doing.
Yeah, we're going all in.
And then all of a sudden we started programming these dances into it, and people were like, this is insane. I've never been at anything like this in my life. And the fortunate thing for us is, number one, we were the first pop-up in Nashville. I did not know what that even meant to be a pop-up. I started doing it, and my friend's like, oh, you're doing a pop-up? I'm like, what is that? Mm-hmm. He says, well, you go in someone else's space and you pop up for once or twice, and then you're done. I said, okay, well, but we're a stay up. We're going to stay.
For sure. And that's actually a perfect transition because, I think one of the really great things from a business perspective and from a little bit lower risk perspective that you had is you didn't necessarily have to buy your own space and then pay rent or do lease for your own space. You could use somebody else's space. Obviously, you had probably a business negotiation where you paid him a certain amount, but I kind of have been starting the same way with my health and fitness business. I don't have my own gym yet, but I've been renting out other people's space. And so there's a lot lower risk from that perspective. But then, you were doing this for so long, and I think maybe 6 years down the road in 2017, you guys decided to open up your own location in the Melrose area. Talk about that, how scary maybe that was, and how if you felt like it was a great risk or if you felt confident, and just kind of your mental, emotional, psychological standpoint that you were at and the perspective that you had when you began that newer endeavor.
Yeah, I mean, it was terrifying.
Yeah.
But we had reached the point, we did 5 solid years out there, and we reached the point where it was like, we can't do any more out here, and we have to decide, what are we going to do moving forward? So we sat down with my wife, who is my only partner, really, and we have our attorney, Wayne, who's a dear friend who helps us with everything as well. And we sat down and we're like, okay, how can we do this Do we want to have a real restaurant? Do we like this just Friday and Saturday night thing? Which was great. I mean, financially for us, there was no risk involved.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a matter of my time
Right.
and my energy and just really the whole, the concept. And I don't want to say like I had this master plan for this concept. Everything evolved. The smartest thing that I ever did was to be smart enough to notice when things were working that I had nothing to do with, and capitalize on those moments and make them part of the experience.
Well, and I think a great lesson from that is you just had to start. You didn't have the final vision of everything first. I think oftentimes we wait and we procrastinate until we can see the full picture, but the picture will evolve and create itself and paint itself, if you will, as you begin to move. And that's exactly what you did.
I think that it says a lot about my personality my entire life. I've been the guy that never says no to anything.
Yeah.
And a great story, when I was playing music in New York City, I was working with a folk artist named Wendy Wall, and I was her bass player. And we did shows, and she got a record deal. And there was one song on the record that when I auditioned for the band, she said, "Do you play upright bass?" And I said, "Yeah, sure, of course I do." But I didn't.
Yeah.
I lied. I said, "Yeah, of course I do." And she goes, "Okay, rehearsals on Monday. We've got a gig on Wednesday. If it goes well, you're in."
Yeah.
So I called up my friend who was an upright bass player. I said, "Dude, I need to borrow a bass. Can I borrow a bass?" And I went to my house and I woodshedded. I learned this song on upright bass. And then I auditioned for the band on Monday. She said, "You got the gig if you want it." Wednesday night, we played a show. She was offered a record deal that night.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I'm like, what? So I've been that way my entire life. It's like, just do it.
Right.
Just go out and do things. If you fail, it's not a failure. It's a lesson.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a lesson. What did I do wrong here? And let's not do that again.
And I feel like that's a huge, those kind of moments are huge confidence builders, because when you don't know how to do something, but you say, yes, I can do that thing, then you have to rely on your own ability to then go learn and execute and do the best that you can. And now, a few days, that's crazy. That's crazy. A few days, 2 days to really learn that. That's crazy. But that's a huge confidence builder, because then in the future, when other people ask you, can you do something? The answer might be like, well, honestly, I don't know how to do it, but I will learn how to do that. And I think for all of us, being able to have that skill set and the confidence to say, no, we don't know, but we can learn is huge. And you only can say that with confidence as if you've done it in the past.
Absolutely. So, I mean, moving forward, when we decided to do the restaurant thing, okay, we have to have our own space now. But can we survive on just Friday and Saturday night? Well, probably not.
Right.
So, we put our business plan together. I didn't want to do it with investors if I didn't have to. So I went and I applied and I got an SBA loan, which was terrifying because, it was against my home. And I had worked really hard to get that home. My wife and I invested our entire lives into buying a house. So, we put our house up as collateral and we said, okay, let's open this restaurant. And we found this great space and we converted it and built it out. And again, not saying no to doing anything. Most of the build out I did myself. I built all the tables. I put the floors down. I did most of the tile work because I think that's a very Italian mentality. It's like, why am I going to pay this guy to do it when I can do it? You know what I'm saying? I can totally do it. I watch a video, boom, boom, it's done. That was my mentality my entire life. And so we opened up and we said, okay, so Monday through Thursday, we'll have just a focacceria basically with sandwiches and pizzas and salads and that kind of stuff, just very casual Italian. And on Friday and Saturday nights, we'll do the feast. And we did that for, the first 5 or 6 years that we were in business. And then, of course, COVID happened. Mm-hmm. And everybody had to shut down. And here's another one of those moments where it's like, I'm not going to let anything beat me down.
Yeah.
How do I pivot and adjust to this situation and make it work for me? So immediately I started doing these dinners where it's basically, you get a pasta, a salad, and blah, 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 and we'll deliver it to your house. Mm-hmm. Or you could come and pick it up. Because everybody was freaking out then. How are we going to eat? We can't go out to dinner. We can't, go to the grocery store. All the shelves are empty. Mm-hmm. So I was making these dinners, and my wife and my son would get in the car and they'd deliver it to subdivisions. And we did it in our own subdivision. I always tell the people that live in my subdivision that was my George Bailey moment. It's a Wonderful Life, where these people just rallied around us to keep us alive. Cool. And we did that, and it started taking off. Okay, this subdivision loves it. Let's go to another one. And we got one person in each subdivision. And before you knew it, for about 6 months, we were 6 nights a week, a different subdivision every night, sending out food. I was doing it all myself. There were nights where I slept at the restaurant.
Yeah.
And my wife and my son would deliver it, and it got us through. And, so after all of that happened, we reopened during the week and the feast. And of course we were following all the protocol with the masks and all that kind of stuff. And that was really difficult for us because when we started this whole experience, you would sit at the table with strangers.
Yeah, well, and it's all about interaction.
It's all about interaction. And if you came as you and your wife just would come by yourselves, chances are you're going to sit with 3 other couples at a big table.
Mm-hmm.
And before the night's over, you guys are friends, you're exchanging numbers. And we've had so many wonderful relationships that were formed at those tables.
That's so cool.
We've had people that are still friends, still come back year after year. And that was one of the really beautiful things about it. And that's really the essence of Italian culture, is to share a meal with somebody and interact and talk about your life in a very just relaxed kind of a vibe. So the COVID thing really hurt that part of our business because that was all of a sudden that went away.
Of course.
So coming back was a little bit difficult in the beginning, and we got through it. And we did that for about a year and a half after COVID. And then January of, 2020, I said, I just can't do this anymore.
Yeah, at 21, I think, because 20 was the COVID.
21.
Yeah.
I was like, I can't do it anymore. I'm killing myself here. I'm literally here 6 days a week, 14 hours a day, barely getting by.
And that was different than before. You felt like because of COVID and things not going as smoothly, you had to be there and give a little bit more time. And you're like, man, I'm putting in more and more time and like getting maybe a little bit marginal results, but like I'm killing myself doing it.
Yeah, and your life is not worth anything like that. It was taken away from my family. It was just it was beating me down.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a really positive guy. That was one of the lowest points of my life. And I said, okay, New Year's Eve, that's our last night. We're going to close. I already had somebody to take over my lease. I had most of my equipment. Like, somebody's going to buy this.
Wow.
And we put it out there, and immediately just completely inundated with texts from people and emails. You can't close. Our parents danced for the last time before my dad passed away at your place.
Oh, my gosh.
All these beautiful moments that were shared at our feast. And so, I sat down with my wife, Janine, and I said, what if we just came back and just did Fridays and Saturday feast like we did when we started? What if we just tried that and see what happens? What's the worst case scenario? So we do it for a month, it doesn't work, and then we're right back where we are. Right. Now we have already got everything lined up. And that was in January. And then so we went the whole month of January where we were closed. We said, okay, first weekend in February, we're going to come back. We're going to do just the feast. And, one of the news stations locally did a great story about us. And instantly, we sold out the entire month of February, Friday and Saturday night, 100 people each night.
Wow.
This city just rallied around us and brought us back to life.
That's so cool.
And after that, we're like, okay, maybe this is it now. Maybe we don't have to be open during the week. Maybe we can get our lives back. And I looked at that and I'm like, okay, this is what we're going to do from now on. Just Friday and Saturday night feasts. And the magic of that is this. I cut my payroll by 80%. I cut my food cost enormously.
Of course.
All of my expenses went down. The beauty of what we do from a business standpoint is I've turned the restaurant model upside down.
Yeah.
A traditional restaurant, on a Thursday night, they have to have food for 100 people. Well, guess what? If only 30 people walk through the door, they still have food for 100 people. They still have staff for 100 people. And what happens to your bottom line after that happens?
Yeah.
It's garbage. You're totally screwed. And you might have those 2 great nights, but all those other nights, you have to prepare for a great night. And if a great night doesn't happen, you're done.
Yeah.
So, I'm speaking from experience because this is what I did for years. And it's what every restaurant does. And if you're fortunate, you'll make great money doing that. So, if you look at what the national average is on restaurants for food cost and just net profit, the national average net profit for a restaurant in a traditional restaurant model is 5 to 10%. Ours is 15 to 20.
Wow.
Food cost is 25 to 35%. Fine dining is really up there. But of course, those numbers are higher. Ours is 12 to 14%. Why is it like that? It's like that because I know exactly how many people are coming every week.
Yeah.
I know exactly.
It's a lot more predictable.
It's you taking all the guesswork out.
Yeah.
Of it. Now, of course, I always pad my numbers a little bit, but even still, on Saturday night, when I walk out of my restaurant and I look in the walk-in, there's hardly anything in there that's going to go bad.
Right.
And that is the key. And that's why we've been so successful doing it with this model. And people look at me like, well, how can you do this just 2 nights a week? Well, here's why. And what I just told you is exactly why.
You know, it's funny. I feel like I've thought of this idea 3 times that you've been talking throughout this interview is the mother of innovation is necessity.
Absolutely.
So you had the point in your life when your son was 1 year old and you're like, I'm not going to be around enough that I want to in his life. And so something needs to change. You felt a level of necessity. And then that led to the creativity and the innovation of the idea. And there was another time, and then same thing here is like, we are either going to be closed and we're going to completely change careers, or something needs to change. And then you had the creativity and the innovation of like, let's just do the Friday and Saturday event. And it worked. And so oftentimes we see necessity, or we feel like that back against the wall is a terrifying thing, and it is a terrifying thing, but at the same time, if you approach it correctly, then it can lead to unbelievable creativity and unbelievable innovation.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, it's exactly what you said. You know, necessity is the mother of invention. Of course it is. That doesn't mean it's not terrifying.
Of course.
I mean, life is terrifying.
Yeah.
But you got to be brave. And you got to face it head on, no matter what the challenge is. If you don't face it and you run from it every time, you're going to fail.
For sure.
Bottom line, you're going to fail.
For sure. So is it still just Friday, Saturday right now?
Friday and Saturday nights. Wow. And we do events the other nights. We do private events.
That's
Sunday
amazing.
through Thursday. Christmas time, we'll run 20 nights in a row just with private events.
Okay.
And it's great. So, you know, for a private event, like, you know, Sunday through Thursday, you need to guarantee us 30 people to do a private event. But if you got 30 friends, you could come in and have that entire experience to yourselves. Mm-hmm. And people are like, oh, this is great. I'm totally having my anniversary party. We're having my dad's 50th birthday, whatever it may be. And at Christmas time, you know, the entire month of December, it's all corporate events. Because people that work at a business are like, I've got the best idea for our Christmas party this year.
For sure.
And they come in and it's turnkey, all the entertainment, all the food, everything is there for you. So it's not like, oh, I have to hire a caterer, I have to go and get, but it's all there. Yeah. So it's simple. I want to simplify it for people.
No doubt. And to go back to the predictability side of things when it comes to a business model, luckily I actually didn't think of that when I first started my business. I didn't think like, oh, I need a level of predictability. I had an idea for a program and I wanted people to set goals and I wanted people to do habits and have a scoreboard and all this stuff. But the way I have it set up with my business is oftentimes personal trainers just have clients. They just have one-on-one clients and they pay per session. And if they don't show up, then they don't get paid, or they have a cancellation fee and it's much smaller. But for me, people sign up for me for 10 weeks at a time. And if they don't show up because they're sick or because they're lazy, which doesn't happen, then I still get paid.
Yeah.
And so like, I know when people sign up for the 10 weeks, I know what I'm getting paid for, at least for that 2.5 months. And so a level of predictability is so key when it comes to peace of mind and actual numbers for a business. Now, one of the things that I told you that I was most impressed by with the whole experience is the level of friendliness, the level of like a family feel and the culture that you and your staff have. Sure. Right when we walked in, we were welcomed. Right when we walked in, we were sat down, we were spoken to with positivity. And when everybody got there, it was like everybody wanted to take care of you. They talked to you about the experience. They always smiled. And so I was just so impressed with the culture. And the thing that surprises me is, or I don't know if surprises me, but impresses me, is this was your baby. This was your idea. You had so much passion behind it because this is kind of how you grew up. Mm-hmm. And this was the thing that you experienced with your family and you did with your family. And so that gives you so much gumption and so much passion behind it. How do you create that same level of passion and enthusiasm in other people when it's not necessarily their story or their baby?
I think that that's infectious to people. Now, of course, we've run through our share of people that were not a great fit for it, as every business does. I really feel like that comes from the top down. And for lack of a better word, I used to tell my son, number one rule, don't be a dick.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
be good to people and they'll be good to you. You know, treat your staff like they're your family, and really treat them that way.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody says, "Oh, you guys are family to us," and then I can't do this anymore. You're out.
Yeah.
You know, so
What does that look like when you say actually treat your staff like your family? Like, what are some examples that you might be like proud of, or that you guys have built in that makes it so they actually feel like family?
you have to create an environment where people want to go that extra mile for you, and you're only going to get that if you do that for them. And there are nights when it was a slow night and I knew people needed money. I'd cover them. I'd throw extra money into the tip pool. When somebody was in a situation where they had a situation where they needed money for something else.
Yeah.
I'll cover you. We'll take it out of your check.
Mm-hmm.
Things like that, and just being kind to people.
Yeah.
Kindness doesn't cost you a dime.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're just good to people, they'll be good to you. And of course, you're always going to get somebody that does not get that. They don't appreciate that, and they're going to come back at you. And they'll steal from you. They'll not treat your customers the way that they want to be treated. And I think what happens is, from a business standpoint, sometimes you get into a position where it's a false sense of security. Like, oh, this person does a good job for me, so it's okay if she's a jerk to somebody, once or twice a month. Or this guy does a really good job, but he's late every day. Those kind of things, you get into a position where you're comfortable with it because it's not causing you any drama.
Right.
Yeah. Like, oh, it's okay, it's fine. But you can't be fine with that stuff. The second you see it, you have to put a stop to it, because it will just get worse and worse and worse as time moves on.
No doubt.
And you're in a fortunate position where you don't have employees, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, if you're having a bad day, you can't project that on your clients.
For sure.
Because the number one thing that people feel is energy, whether you know it or not. If your day is like the worst day ever, you go in there and you're face to face with somebody, and they're going to feel that whether you say anything or not. And so I try to create an environment where if things are not perfect for me, nobody around me is going to get that.
Yeah.
Because it's not their problem. It's
sure.
my problem.
For sure. No, that's great. And I think, as you said, setting such a high standard and actually holding people to that standard. I think that's one of the big things that is the most difficult for leadership. It's easy to communicate what your standard is. It's much more difficult to hold people to that standard when they're falling short of it, especially if it's not impacting you. Like you said, if people were treating other people wrong, if you tolerated that, then it would spread, and then it would heighten, and it would get worse. One of the things I want to ask is, you mentioned some of those things that you would do, that you would treat your employees like family, and maybe you'd cover them in certain scenarios, and then maybe there's times when people take advantage of you and steal from you. Was there like ever a biggest lesson or situation where somebody did take advantage of that?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. I've had people that worked for me that was just, stealing. And
how do you go about after having learned that lesson? How do you go about? Did you change anything about how you hire people? Did you change anything about how much you treated people like family, or did you change anything?
Well, my mistake was probably giving people too much control over things that affected me and my business and the people that worked in my business.
Like what?
So I think, like sometimes hiring, sometimes firing people for no reason.
Mm-hmm.
I removed myself from that because it was easier not to have to think about it.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of businesses, even big corporations, wind up in that situation where you've got shareholders and you've got, your CEO for some reason is just a jerk to people. Well, that trickles down into the culture of the company.
For sure.
And then that's how you're perceived. That's how your company's perceived. So, we've been in situations where, we've had employees that were not the model of what I wanted or what we really tried to create there. And I think we're in a really great position now because everybody's on board with that whole vibe. And again, we want people to feel, I never want somebody not to be greeted the minute they walk in the door and with a smile. Mm-hmm. Welcome. Make the whole idea of hospitality is to welcome people and sit down and let us make you happy tonight.
Yeah.
What can we do for you? Now, that being said, there's always going to be somebody that's not happy. And there's, no matter what you do, you can't make them happy.
Yeah.
That is the one thing about the restaurant business that I will say, that it doesn't matter how good you are, it doesn't matter what a great night you're having, there's always going to be somebody that they should stay home. You know, I mean, honestly, you know. Course. And the bad thing about our culture right now and technology right now is anybody can go anywhere and say whatever the heck they want.
Yeah.
You know, and you get people and they go on to these review sites and I try not to put too much weight on those things. And if somebody has an issue and I know, wow, we dropped the ball, I'll reach out to them directly.
Yeah.
I'm not going to respond to them. So what I've done in the last couple of years as a joke, because some of these things are just ridiculous.
Yeah.
If it's completely ridiculous, I respond, I accept your apology. And it drives people nuts. We're like, why isn't he battling me on this? And that, you know, some people perceive that as me being condescending. It's me just showing the ridiculousness of all of this.
Yeah.
You know, I know what we do. I know the people that work for me now, they're beautiful people and they treat everybody like I want them to be treated, like I would want to be treated. And you notice those things. You know, sometimes if you go to a restaurant and your waitress is just wonderful, or your waiter is wonderful, or the bartender is fantastic, you're willing to let some things slide.
Yeah.
I mean, that comes first before what's on the plate.
No, I think what you said is so true. There's always going to be people who are looking for things to complain about and want to have things to complain about. And I think one of the biggest dangers of, you know, social media and review sites and stuff like that is oftentimes there can be anonymous feedback. And whether it's anonymous or whatever the opposite of that is, there's no accountability for it, or there's no repercussions for it. And so people can say whatever they want without ever kind of getting any backlash for it. And so that gives people free reign to complain about whatever they want. And whether or not it's valid or not, they can say it.
Exactly. And sadly, that's the culture that we live in right now. And it's, you know, it's not anybody's fault. I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to drive to somebody's house and smack them because they say something bad about your business?
Yeah.
There's really nothing that you can do. Again, if it's a legitimate situation where your business has dropped the ball, reach out to them personally. I'm a face-to-face kind of a guy. I'm not like, I'm just going to send you an email and that's the end of it. That's not how I live my life, because I want to feel good about myself when I'm driving home at the end of the night.
Yeah.
So, and I would say to people, if you have a big issue, come talk to me about it. I'm happy to make you happy. You know, so I heard a great saying, a guy named Danny Myers, who's a huge restaurant guy in New York. He says, I'm not in the restaurant business. I'm in the making people happy business. Yeah. And I've taken that mantra and brought it into my world with everything that I do. You know, I want people to smile when they walk away from me. I want people to smile when they leave the restaurant. It's
important to have a, you know, phrase or a mantra or whatever you want to call it, something like that, kind of as your North Star, because it completely changes how you interact with people and how you actually go about your night. To go back on, to hit on the people complaining and just one more time, I think that's a good lesson for everybody, because whether you own a restaurant or you just are somebody who has a regular job and you're just on social media, there's going to be people who say things, whether it's on social media or off social media, that say things that are negative about you and provide you with some sort of critique or negative feedback. And, you know, there are times when maybe it actually is feedback you should listen to and you should integrate into whatever it is that you're doing and maybe change. But oftentimes it's like that person is saying something because they've got an issue and they want to have something to complain about to feel better about themselves. And so just know that. And that can give you a lot of peace of mind when you're evaluating whether or not to take in feedback or not.
Absolutely.
With the culture of your people and whatnot, I want to think or talk practical for a second. Do you guys have, before Friday and Saturday nights, do you guys have a team meeting in which you discuss particular things? I'll just start with that. Do you guys have a meeting where you talk about particular things and like the timing of things and how many people? What does that look like to get everybody kind of set up for success going into the night?
I think right now, the point that we're at right now with the business is, and the people that we've had have been there for several years. Some of them have been with me for 14 years on and off. I think everybody kind of knows, here's the plan, this is what we do. The only time we'll sit down and have an actual meeting is if something came up the night before that we need to address, okay, you guys are doing this. We need to refocus and do this tonight instead of that. Also, if there's a new menu, we'll sit down and we'll go through everything with them. But they've all been with us, for long enough now where everybody knows what their role is, what they're supposed to be doing. And there were years when people come and go and they didn't know that. I think that's one of the benefits of having a great culture where people will stick with you.
For sure.
You don't have to have those conversations all the time. Usually once or twice, and sometimes, of course, people need to be reminded of things. But we've been very fortunate that, the staff that we have now are just so wonderful, and they really are good to one another, too. There's no competition. And, they work for tips, and it's a tip pool. It's not like one person's doing better than the other. Everything that they do benefits the other person. So if one person's sliding and they're not cutting it, everybody else is going to come up and say, hey, you need to get your stuff together tonight because, this is affecting all of us. And so, from that standpoint, we don't have a big meeting. I mean, everybody comes in at a certain time in the afternoon and they start prepping and getting the place ready. And usually they're talking the whole time they're there. Mm-hmm. So if there's an issue from the night before, we'll discuss it. And again, it's not a big staff.
Yeah.
I bring in people, and that's one of the things as well is there's a seniority with the servers. Whoever's been there the longest gets the first call. And again, going back to just what our costs are each night, I only bring in enough servers for the amount of people that we have. So if we have a slow light night and there's 40 people for dinner, which happens very often, I don't have as many servers. So nobody feels like I'm getting screwed out of money tonight because we're slow. Then most of these people have other jobs as well.
So, they're not just working 2 days a week.
Yeah, and I'm very conscious about their time and respecting their time, where I'm not going to tell them last minute, you're not working tonight. No, I usually on Wednesday, I know how many people are coming. And I send a text to everybody, here's how many we got Friday and Saturday. And I kind of let them decide who's working those nights. They know how many people we need based upon that number. And then they decide amongst themselves. And they're really good to each other. And they, there's not one person like, the hell with you, I'm working tonight. It doesn't exist. Yeah. And we're very fortunate to have those kind of people working for us.
For sure. You've been doing this for 14 years. It started in the Cool Cafe in 2011 and then moved in 2017 to Melrose. I think longevity of any career is impressive, no matter what career it is. And especially in a career and an experience that you create when it's so energetic and it's passion and experience. And you're obviously an extroverted type individual for the most part. What has allowed you to stay motivated and keep the same energy and passion behind it over the years? Because I know that no matter what it is, even if you love it, there's going to be times when you're not staying as energetic and motivated about it. So talk to us about either things you've remembered or what you've done to stay so energetic and passionate about the project that you guys have and the experience that you create.
Yeah. One of the things that I've learned as an entertainer doing music as long as I have been is it doesn't matter how many people are in the audience. You need to give them the same show every night.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you don't feel like singing tonight. They paid to hear you sing. You go out there and you sing just as well as you did when there were 200 people in front of you. So I try to create that same kind of a vibe with what we do. It doesn't matter if I'm exhausted, and I feed off the energy in the room as well. There are some nights that, you're just not feeling it, but you do it anyway, because if there's 50 people in the room, if only 20 of them really get it and they love it, well, you made those 20 people have a better night and a better time. Those other people, if they're not getting it, it's okay. It's not for everybody. I'm a firm believer that every experience is not right for every person. There are some people that don't want to get up and dance, and that's fine. I'm not going to make you feel bad. I mean, I'll try.
Yeah.
But I try to be, again, give the same show, no matter how many people. Of course, the energy is different from 30 people in the room to 100 people in the room.
No doubt about it. But like you said, you can be the energetic personality yourself and infuse the room with the energy that you bring. And I'm glad that you said that, because I feel similarly. I used to teach group fitness classes at other places, and oftentimes that would disrupt me psychologically more than I would wanted it to, more than it should have or wanted to, when there was 30 people in class versus when there were 7 people in class. But you have to remind yourself that right before you go into it. The same show, same thing. I don't care how many people are here. Like, you can't give somebody else a lesser experience just because there's not as many people in the room. You have to be able to give them just as great of experience, especially because there's going to be people who are experiencing you for the first time. And you don't want to give them a lower performance than you could otherwise do.
Right. I think the most important thing in the restaurant business that you'll find, and you speak to any restaurateur that's been doing it for 5 years, 50 years, it doesn't matter. Consistency is everything in the restaurant business. People, if they love that experience, they want to have the same experience every time they walk in there. If you go to Kat's Deli in New York, you want that same pastrami sandwich. You want nothing to change about that sandwich. And I've seen that happen in restaurants here in Nashville and in Franklin, where a restaurant did one thing and people loved what they were doing. And all of a sudden one day they brought in a new chef or whatever and like, oh, we're going to do this now. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
No.
For sure.
Yeah, it's the same. Yes, I do the same thing every Friday and Saturday night. And yes, every Friday and Saturday night, sometimes it takes a lot more energy to make that happen.
Yeah.
But I can never let people know that that's how I am.
For sure.
They have to see this same outgoing guy. He's fun. He's happy. He's having a blast. We should have a blast too. They have to see that every time. And the consistency, it's not just what's on the plate. It's also what's on your face.
How do you balance? I'm a huge, I think consistency in anything is what generates real results. How do you balance this idea? As you're talking, I'm kind of trying to simultaneously think about what is the situational difference, or what is the difference between staying consistent with what you've done so you can provide the same level of performance and product and experience, but at the same time you want to innovate sometimes. You want to do some things new. How do you, at this stage, sometimes weigh the difference between when it's time to change something up versus, no, we got to keep sticking with what we've always done?
Right. I think the key to that is, if you're going to change, who's initiating the change? Is the change because you're seeing that people want something differently, or you feel like, I'm just bored of doing this, let me do something else? It doesn't work that way in life. I'm sorry. Especially in any kind of business situation where there is a provider and there's a customer on the other side of all of that. Customers want a service. They want a product. And if they come to you for that service, they come to you for that product, and all of a sudden one day you say, you can't have this anymore. Well, they're not your customers anymore at that point. You're done.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't matter if you're bored with it. They're not.
Yeah.
So I think the point that I would like to get to is that you have to be aware of what your customer is looking at and what they're latching on to. Okay, so you serve this one dish and people are loving it, right? And so don't take it off the menu. Don't do that.
Were there times that you ever changed up the menu and got that kind of like negative feedback?
Of course. Yeah. The thing with us is it's a seasonal menu, so it changes with all the seasons. But there are some things that are consistently always on the menu for that very reason. If I took that lemon chicken, rosemary chicken off the menu, people would lose it. They're like, this is the best chicken I ever had. And it's the simplest dish that I serve.
Right.
So there goes your culinary wisdom about, I know what I need to put on the plate. The lemon risotto cakes, always on the menu. The beef short rib bolognese, always on the menu. The zeppler, the little donuts that you leave with, they're always on the menu from day one until this day. And that's not going to change because that's what people want. That's what they expect. And the fact that it's a dining experience, it's not the kind of thing you're going to go to once a week. You're going to go and you're going to celebrate things there. So you might be craving that dish. And if you all of a sudden you go in, you haven't been there in 6 months, you go in, what do you mean you're not serving that anymore? What are you doing?
Yeah.
So you be careful what you take away from people.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny how many similarities I'm thinking about as you're talking about the restaurant industry and my business too. Because when I'm creating the 10-week transformation and I'm programming the workouts, there are times when I'm thinking, man, should I change up the exercise or should I change up the workout a little bit of here and there? And sometimes I'm wondering, like, are they bored of it, or is it just, am I bored of it? And I kind of have to go back to the intention behind what it is that I'm doing.
Sure.
Am I changing it because I'm bored, or am I changing it because I actually think it's going to be a better workout for them?
Sure.
And so I think the intention behind the change, like you said, and kind of like who's coming up with it.
Yeah.
Is the customer giving you feedback that they would like this to be done a particular way, or they didn't like this? And if so, then potentially that might be a reason to innovate or change something
Sure.
up. And so that's one huge thing. Or if you have an idea yourself where you really feel strong and convicted about the intention behind the change itself, and you feel like it will amplify their experience, then that can be another great reason for
100%.
innovation.
Yeah. And I think you, in your business, people come to you for results. That's the bottom line with what you do. They want results. They want to see results. They want to feel results. They want to know that they're better for having used your service.
For sure.
It's the same with every service. If you really
boil it down to it,
if you go to a mechanic to get your brakes fixed, well, if you don't fix my brakes, I could die.
Yeah.
Okay. Fix my brakes the right way. Don't suddenly say, you know what, these rotors are a little better. Let's try these. Let's just throw these in there. No, it doesn't. Life doesn't work that way.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about what you want when you put yourself in a position where you're providing a service.
Yeah, when you're serving.
When you're serving somebody, that's the whole essence of serving. Is like,
It's not
I'm
about
doing
you.
this for you.
100%.
This is not about me. It's about you.
Yeah.
So
I think that's such a great reminder and great lens for so many of us to think about, whether it is where we have our own business or something else, like whatever business that you're in. I'm sure you're serving somebody to a certain degree, and you want to make sure that it's not about you, it's about them. A couple maybe questions to finish off here. I'm interested in potentially your vision now moving forward. Is it like we're really loving how our life is going right now? We're really loving the experience. We want to keep rocking and rolling with this, or is there anything else that you have as your vision from this experience that you kind of foresee in the next year, 2 years, 3 years?
Well, right now, what I would love to see happen is we're at a point right now where the last 3 years since just going to 2 nights a week, the business model is incredible. The profits have been the most profitable years I've had in business for 14 years, which is crazy because I have 4 days off every week, which is in the restaurant business. They're like, all my restaurant friends, like, I hate you, dude. Yeah. I hate you for this. But so I've turned this model upside down. For me and us, from a business standpoint, what we want to look at is how do we grow this brand now? How do we take this experience to other places? Now, of course, I can't clone myself. And that's the biggest issue. And that's what always everybody said from day one is, this is great, but there's only one of you. Yeah, I know there's only one of me. But I'm at the point right now where, like, last year I went to Italy. My staff did the feast without me. People had a fantastic time. I even got calls from people that I knew that were there. They did a great job. So moving forward, I would like to see this in other cities. I would like to see this in other locations with this concept and with this model. And I can be the face of this brand. Right. I can go from place to place and introduce people. And it's really just a matter of
finding energetic Italians.
They don't have to be Italian. Nobody that works. None of the girls are Italian.
Really? Okay.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
But everybody thinks they are.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, you're Italian. The one girl, Janet, that I dance with, could totally pass for Italian. They're like, is that your wife? I'm like, no, it's my work wife.
Yeah.
But I think it's just a matter of transferring that culture and that energy to another location with other people, and we've got it down so much that it's just scientific. Like, boom, boom, this is what happens at this point, and everybody knows their role. Everybody knows, we look up at the movie, and if the Godfather's on a certain scene, we know we're behind or we know we're ahead. Yeah. It's a 3-hour movie, and purely coincidence that it worked out that way. But yes, we can grow this brand, and yes, there is not another one of me, but maybe there is another guy that's like this.
100%.
That, given this opportunity, would shine. Yeah. So,
like you said, in the restaurant, in the restaurant industry, people would kill to work the 2 days a week or 3 days a week or whatever it is, and so if you take the right approach, because that's kind of similar to me, right? Like, I want to kind of, to an extent, clone myself with another trainer who can run my program, and that it's definitely possible, but you have to be diligent and you have to train the person correctly, and it might happen more slowly than you want, but if you're persistent about it, you can definitely make it happen. Before I ask the last question, You guys, I went about 2 weeks ago and I invited him on the podcast for a reason, because the experience was that profound and that unique and that special. And so I would love for you guys to go try this out. Go to try out Mangia Nashville. It's in the Melrose area here in Nashville. If you don't live in Nashville, when you come visit, go to it, because it's like Friday, Saturday night. You can check out the feast. Anytime I told somebody beforehand, or there was a number of people I told beforehand that I was going, they're like, oh, you're going to love it. You're going to love it. And so I've been telling people about it ever since. And I have no doubt that some people I've told are going to come. I have no doubt that some people who listen to the podcast are going to come. Go with your significant other. Maybe you'll meet other people there, but we went with a group of 6. Go with a group of 6, 8, 10, 12, and it is just an absolute blast. So make sure you go check it out. And you can follow them on Instagram and Facebook at Mangia Nashville as well. And it's MANGIA Nashville. MANGIA Nashville. A question that kind of just actually popped in my mind as we got here towards the end. How do you think that starting Mangia, in starting this experience in over these last 14 years, how do you think that has helped shaped you into a closer version of the best version of yourself?
I think it's just really paying attention to people's reactions to the experience, to just their moods. I want everybody to be happy.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, if you're looking around everything that's going on in the world right now, if I can create one little situation for 3 hours even where you can forget about that and just enjoy that moment, that makes me feel like I've done something. Yeah, of course I want to make money. I have to make money.
Yeah, of course.
But I want to feel good about what I'm doing. And that's, you know, it's the reason why I played music my entire life. It's, you know, people always said, do what you love and the money will come. Do a job where it doesn't feel like you're doing a job. Well, I've been very fortunate to be able to make my living in the music business for as long as I did. And of course there were slow years, there were years that was like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever. And that's going to happen no matter what career you choose. And whatever path you take in life, you're going to have ups and downs, and that's fine. That's part of life. That's how you get better. That's how you improve what you are inside and up here. And I really feel like, you know, doing this whole thing has made me just look at things differently. And knowing that the smartest people are the ones that could adapt to the situation. The people that lose are the ones that just give up and walk away from it.
Yeah.
So just don't give up, man. If it's beautiful and it's perfect, nothing's perfect.
Yeah.
But if it's beautiful and it's perfect for you, stick with it.
That's awesome. I love it. Thanks, you guys, this was great. We talked about how the mother of innovation is necessity, and that provides creativity. We talked about the ups and downs of the restaurant industry and how he's innovated and how he's changed and how he treats people like family and how you serve people correctly and how you create an experience that others are going to walk away remembering and telling other people about. And so everybody listening can gain value from that. So again, make sure you go check out Mangia Nashville. You can go to their website. You can go to their social media handles. Make sure you like and subscribe to the show. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Apple, or on Spotify, make sure you hit that follow button so you know the future episodes that come out. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit that like and subscribe button down below. But this was an absolute joy, Nick. I appreciate you joining me, man. That was great.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.